Hey Starseeds, welcome to Starseed Energetics. My name is Bora and I'm gonna get into your March reading for Andromedan Starseeds. Hope you guys are well. Just tuning in. Let's get it. Okay, 3 times in a row, you have a card that, well, you have 3 cards that just kind of synchronized to show some kind of code exchange. So this wouldn't necessarily have to be physical, but it's on an energetic level where you are exchanging perspectives gathered from various lifetimes, timelines, events, experiences, with another individuation of your oversoul that is kicking in for you, and it's kind of merging with the other person. So get ready to kind of get insights into corners of reality that you've never really experienced before, and it's gonna be a really chaotic experience to say the least. But this, even though at first it feels like a lot of inner conflict, because a part of you obviously resists this amount of change, the part of you that is protective of your existence, of what you think it is, what you think your existence is, the outer layer of you is obviously trying to protect it by not changing too much. But this honestly is resonant with the deepest truths of yours. So even if a lot of these perspectives are really outside of the range of your scope right now, there's a part of you that really recognizes the truth in these alternate ways of looking at things. So as much as things seem to be falling apart and your entire paradigm is shifting, it's a liberating feeling underneath the chaos. So if you look at these cards, this is about having the outer layers of yours just breaking, and it's a card of chaos and conflict. But the same kind of visual imagery is paralleled here with like rose petals. So one part of you experiences this change as super tumultuous and maybe hard to digest, but the other part of you, the deeper part of you, is so liberated. And this will be like taking out a tooth that is like rotting, you know. Part of it's gonna hurt, but overall it's a great experience. It's just the growing pains. So the next card that comes up is Between Worlds. So this is a literal transition from going from one dimension of living to a hyperdimensional existence, reality, interdimensional, hyper real. So you've honestly been living your life stuck inside a paradigm that doesn't even fit. So there was a level of you that always knew there's more to life than what you experience, but it was so, man, you were so deceived that you almost started believing the deception. You worked really hard to build what you have right now, and you almost feel the part of you that's resistant to this change and the part of you that is feeling chaotic about this whole change, even though one level of you feels so liberated, is the part of you that worked so hard to build up what you thought was your foundation. And because you've been working so hard to get to where you are now, when this paradigm is shifting, that's the part of you that's fearing the change, because you feel like you've worked up towards nothing if things are about to just change so quickly. Like all of your hard work has gone to waste or something. But what they're asking me to remind you is that it's not going to waste. Like, what you've been building up to now so far is so crucial in where you're going next, and you have this advantage that maybe other people don't have, because you've been building these deceptive building blocks that you thought might have been the end of the picture, but it's actually a springboard for your next paradigm. And you could have not possibly gone to that level to the extent that you're getting there unless you had this experience first. And maybe there's a lingering voice inside of your head that is thinking, why didn't I maybe consider this earlier? Or like, why didn't I even, you know, it was not even in the scope of your imagination to consider life in this new way that you're going into. But don't beat yourself up about that, because there was a clear reason why you were so limited, because that limitation gave you constraints to build the crucial step to where you're going. If you had known where you're going to end up at this point of your life, you wouldn't have built all of these stepping stones. It's just so happens that the stepping stones don't happen to be the biggest picture where you're headed. Like, these things that you've been building that you thought was the whole entire landmark of your creation is just not even halfway to where you're actually going. And it couldn't have been more stable unless you were constrained inside of this box. But your real potential has never gone anywhere, and everything is synchronized to soulmates. Came up again. Yeah, whatever like output of that soul, oversoul. So if you're not familiar with the idea of the oversoul, it's a level beyond your personal like expression of the soul. An oversoul is like the larger, more abstract concept of your soul experience. So if you can just imagine, if you're like a heart and your soul is like the entire human body, then the oversoul is the entire society. Society being the morphogenic field where everyone kind of operates from. It's like an individuation of the individuation of the individuation. But you're basically swapping codes or information, energetic qualities with another counterpart. Or in simple human language, a soulmate. Serendipity. And so you can kind of just expect everything to work out in what seems like coincidences, but they're really serendipitous synchronicities. Like, there's no other way that this can unfold. Things are not linear, you know. And this has been, everything has been designed so perfectly for this transition to occur. And until, you know, until this falls together in the most divine timing, you just need to trust what's happening and keep doing what you're doing. Like, whatever mundane tasks that you perform every single day, just keep doing that, because everything is set up for you. And you could definitely trust that the way that it's set up for you, and whoever set it up for you is just a larger counterpart of yourself. Like I said, the oversoul. Like, you know, an organ of the heart is not gonna be doubting that the entire body is functioning in a proper way to, you know, nurture not only the heart but all the other organs as well. That's kind of how the attitude you need to adopt with yourself versus the greater reality of your environment or your society. You just have to kind of trust it. And everybody has different functions for the collective, and you just need to trust that, even if some of that is, you might see it as negative. Like, for example, in your body, if there's a system of elimination, you might consider that as something negative if you're not part of the elimination system of the body. But you're not looking at it from the broader perspective, right? So just try to trust and have faith. And a lot of people who actually have the most trust issues, don't even know that they have trust issues. Because if it's so ingrained in you, you don't notice, you only notice that you have certain qualities and characteristics until you're able to let it go. So you know, just like how if people have eating disorders, they'll just deny that until they're ready to move on from that. Or the same thing goes with depression. Like people who are actually deep in the situation, or they're not ready to evolve from whatever they're challenged with, they will not admit that they're having that problem. But time for you to kind of just really examine yourself and, you know, realize certain qualities about yourself so you can move on from that. So just trusting doesn't really need to, it really doesn't require any action. Trusting is a very feminine paradigm. If I could sum up the feminine paradigm, it would be to trust and surrender and receive. And it's nothing more than just a way of being. It's just a frequency that you can adopt. You don't even have to know what you're trusting or who you're trusting with what. You just trust. And with releasing as well and letting go, you don't need to necessarily know what you're releasing or what you're letting go, but just this energy of release. That's enough. Okay. Fire. Yeah. Conflict and chaos with the Tower card. If I could translate the Tower energy from the tarot into simple words, it would be chaos and conflict. But I love the Tower energy. I love chaos and conflict, to be honest. I think, I don't know, in the past, I honestly probably was really attracted to that quality of like massive change. It's like an adrenaline rush. And even if a part of you is resisting change, a part of you is in love with this amount of tremendous change. And like I said, it's a liberating feeling. It's a really, really liberating feeling. Eliminating things that no longer serve, and actually embracing a lot of darkness as well, like the darkest aspects of yourself. And you have a lot of fire energy. And Lyran as well. Wouldn't be surprised if you have a good amount of Lyran in you. So you have a lot of creative spark and you have a lot of inspiration coming through, but you kind of need to rewire yourself into how you perceive the notion of failure. Or I almost feel like, as ridiculous as it sounds, because it was talking about how, you know, how much you worked for what you have now, but you can't view this as a failure just because you're switching courses or you're recalibrating your destination. Or there's almost this fear of failure for future projects. Failure is just a concept that exists if you give up at one point. If you never give up, failure doesn't exist. So that's what I want you to kind of consider. Failure is like a non-existent concept. It only exists for people who believe in it. So try to not think about this failure. It's not an option, love. Failure is not an option. And if you have that mindset, like, you learn from everything. And you know, I know there's like these hyper masculine Silicon Valley people who are so obsessed with like building 10,000 different startups, which, like, I appreciate their energy and I appreciate their approach to life, and I learn a lot from them a lot of the times. And one of the things that they like to celebrate the most is failure, because unless you celebrate your failures, because that means that you're learning something from what you failed from. So try to not think of failure as something permanent or whatever, because if you look back in your life, every time you seemingly failed at something, didn't it come back through to recalibrate your direction into a way that you freaking leaped, quantum leaps from where you were trying to go? Like, you kind of reapproach situations in a different way after you failed, and it led you to directions that you couldn't even imagine before, right? So these are just kind of like, imagine if you're going through a maze and you run into like a dead end, but it's not an actual dead end, it's just like directing you to the actual path where there is no dead end. But part of you is traumatized by the times when you approached a seeming dead end because you were so, I guess, heartbroken or whatever. So just don't think like that. Make peace with all your past failures, and just make peace with any possible failures that might come up. Because if you fear this option of failure, the resistance to that, the energetic resistance to that option, is the thing that's gonna do the most damage rather than the actual failure. Failure, pleasure, Queen of Wands, abundance. I love this. Sweet. Okay, so, okay, what are you trying to tell me here? Make peace with whatever change is coming, because you have a stable foundation of abundance that you've built in your life, and it's not going anywhere. And if you think that this is being threatened by all the changes that are occurring in your life, the foundational energy that you built thus far, all the successes that you've accumulated, all of the wins and victories, it's an energetic frequency that exists in your field that you've tapped into. The life that you're living right now isn't by chance, and it isn't really about luck. It means that you've cultivated a set of energetic vibrations that are crystallizing this reality for you, and that is not going anywhere. But if you are afraid of the change and you don't move forward, look, life around you is changing like fucking crazy. If you haven't noticed, do you understand what's gonna happen in the technology landscape over the next 3 to 5 years with virtual reality, holographic projections, artificial intelligence? Alexa, good evening.
Same to you.
See, we're getting new family members on Earth. So you don't understand, like, these little artificial intelligence little friends and everything is changing so much that if you're stuck in this comfort zone because you're afraid of the possibility of failure, which you're not even resonant with, you can only have this kind of downfall if you're in the energy field for that, but you're not. So I just want you to make peace with the fact that you, first of all, you deserve everything you've done so far. Like, I feel like a part of you feels like you don't even know if you deserve everything to the core. Maybe you look at other people and how they're living and feel guilty for all the things that you've gained, sometimes effortlessly. But no, you deserve all of it. You deserve all of it. And it's not going anywhere. It's only gonna get better. But if you don't give yourself that amount of faith, like, what are you gonna do? Not move on? But you're gonna move on, because this is all happening anyway. This is a macrocosmic energy, meaning it's a universal energy that's occurring around you, and it's not something that, you know, like, it's gonna be really hard for you to stay stagnant because you're in tune with this energy. And if you don't let it go, it's gonna feel like, you know, like lobsters. I think the way they create new shells and get bigger is when they're basically building their own shells or something like that, okay? And when they grow too big for the shell, it starts hurting the little soft creature inside, and then it goes under a rock, and then it starts to get out of the old shell and it starts building new shells, basically from, you know, the feedback of being too big for the old shell. That's literally you right now. The old shell, you're growing out of it, and no matter how much you think that was the end of your potential, it's not. There's a bigger shell that's waiting to be built for you. And this Prince of Wands is that fire energy that's like kind of darting towards what you want without really thinking about your obstacles. That's exactly the mentality that you're going to adopt, and that is in your field. But again, you have so much fire energy. You're probably a fire sign. If not, you just have a lot of fire elemental energy. Like maybe your Ayurvedic profile is like very fiery. Or you just means that you're just getting tons of different inspirations to take your life in a different way. But this is definitely coming up with the Prince of Wands, with this Six of Cups, with this success. It basically is saying how you're going to move forward and achieve a level of success in some area of your life, in an expression of your area that gives you this ultimate satisfaction and pleasure, because it was, you know, your soul mission. This is your code. And the only way that you feel amazing doing something is if it's in harmonic resonance with your soul's blueprint, basically. And that's the only reason why it gives you pleasure. So if you actually go around and ask like 100 different people, what's your most ideal life situation, and describe what you want to be doing, describe what you want to have, what you want to do, what you want to look like everything. And if people got down to the actual details, and if they were really in tune with themselves, everyone would have a different narrative. So you don't have to worry about stealing this kind of ideal vision from, or taking it away from anybody else. This is like purely your own path. It's yours. Last but not least, you have the Queen of Wands. It's the fire energy, but also at the same time it's feminine quality. So it's you getting in tune with your intuition, you finally opening up to receive and trust, like we were just talking about the feminine paradigm. And this comes up with an Ace of Cups. So this is, Ace of Cups is the divine feeling of the natural frequencies of love. And as you move forward with all of these things and paths and new creative opportunities, you get in touch with this creative feminine quality of being in tune with your intuition. And Ace of Cups again, whereas emotions are more artificial because it's governed by the moon, which is an artificial satellite, Ace of Cups is more like this holistic feeling, like your intuition, clairgnosis. So you're gaining this back, and it's all because you subjugate this fear of failure, and whatever you deem as a failing quality in your life, you're transmuting that to reactivate this part of yourself that was already always meant to be your expression. Okay, that was a pretty quick reading. Maybe I'll read one more thing. Move with the flow, feminine paradigm again, just going with the flow of life. And I think for you this is quite foreign. I mean, it's not. On a certain level you've always known how to move with the flow of life, but at the same time it needs to become more of a conscious action to move with the flow. So moving with the flow seems like such a, it can seem like a really lazy quality if you look at it. Like you might consider it as an inactivity, but this is very much an active inactivity, or it's like a strategic inaction. It's a very ironic energy in that way, that you learn that just surrendering to flow or surrendering to trust someone or something is actually one of the highest qualities of strength and action, is sometimes being inactive or being in flow and just letting your environment shape your desires for you sometimes, instead of needing to feel like everything has to come from yourself. Because when you're operating from that space of surrendering your boundaries to the greater self of you, which includes the experience of your consciousness beyond the duality of internal and external, you're just at a higher perspective and it's still you. Be open to communication from an unexpected place. This sounds like, it sounds like when you learn to, it's all female archetypes coming up right now. Anyway, when you learn to really adapt to this level of intuition, a level of surrender, and level of, you know, receiving, trusting, and surrendering, you're gonna start getting a lot of unexpected events, messages from different levels of yourself that you didn't even know existed. It almost feels like they were always wanting to communicate with you or interact with you, but they never had a chance to because you were just like not listening. But when you energetically release trust, that automatically opens you up to a higher channel. So that's what's gonna happen, and you're gonna just move on and leave your past behind. Instead of like really attaching to it, I need you to kind of really think of your life in a way that if you were to reset your life and begin all again, you should be at a state where you're gonna have no regrets if all of your stories disappeared. Because when you have lived a life, every single thing that you've ever done is recorded in the Akash, and even if you forget, it's recorded in the Akash. That's just the way it is, because you are the Akash. And those lessons and energies, it's not negative, okay? It's not like a freaking karmic thing. It's not about that. It's about the experience and what you learn from that. So if you feel like everything that you've built can one day be suddenly taken away, that's something you need to reconsider. Because like I said, your vibrational frequency is the real reason why you were able to experience life to this point, not the other way around. So it's almost like this is an example that I like to use. I think it's like the Born Identity series. I used to like that movie, you know, with like Matt Damon. And a lot of the times I think he like gets dropped back into a situation where he has to start all over in like a random third world country, but he still manages to like fucking break through every challenge and, you know, slay everything in the end. Or like 007 or all those like superpower movie things. If the protagonists of those movies with all this like hyper intelligence and superpowers lose everything that they ever built and they get dropped into a third world country, are you as a spectator of that movie afraid for them, or like you don't trust that they're gonna make it in life again? No, I don't think so. You kind of know like no matter what they would make it, they would still climb up because they have the skill sets and they have the hyper intelligence, and you're like that too. And I'm not saying that you're gonna be dropped off in the middle of nowhere with nothing in hand, but I want you to perceive yourself like that. There's nothing that can possibly take away your essence, which is like hyper real, hyper intelligent human with the most beautiful frequencies that has contributed to you building your life up to this point. But let's get real, you have more potential, you have more to explore in this life. So yeah, that's the end of your reading. I hope that has been helpful and resonant. I love you guys very, very much, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.